Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the live edition of the Spectrum Podcast. The live show won't be very long. We're going to go through pretty much. James is going to give you the coaches he from my last show that I did without him. He's going to give you who he would compare Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, Kurt Signetti, Dan Lanning, and Dabo Sweeney to as far as the all-time great coaches. And then we're going to go ahead and just finish everything off with an NBA recap because obviously we haven't talked enough about the NBA and there has been some news going on there, so we'll be talking a lot about them. So how you don't going, James?
I'm doing good. For missed the last show. Happy Easter Sunday, everybody. Hope you guys had a good Easter Sunday. Another great week. A lot of stuff's been going on. NFL related. Draft time is coming up. NBA playoffs are starting, so I'm excited. This is a really fun time of year for me, as always. Enjoying, always getting down to the nitty gritty.
It always is for me, and I can't wait to see how things are going to play out in the NBA. But first, we are going to start by getting your thoughts on the coaches. Again, who would you compare the five coaches I just named, Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, Kirk Signetti, Dan Lanning, and Dabo Sweeney to as far as all-time great coaches? I already gave mine out on the last show. You guys can go back and check that out if you missed it. But give me who you would compare them to.
So for Ryan Day, I love when his Ohio State mind of how he gets the team together, especially from the defensive side. I I agree with you. I think Nick Saban. If you saw how Nick Saban ran with Alabama, he he made offensive players at Alabama, but really the defense stuck out a
Yeah.
lot at Alabama. Alabama was really that defensive toned in team where you had a great defensive linemen, great linebackers, great corners coming out of Alabama. And you had some good quarterbacks, wide receivers here and there, but Nick Saban really worked and built into the defensive side of the ball. So I would definitely agree with you on that one. Kirby Smart, an offensive mind. Now this is of course this is coming from the guy Georgia is an offensive talented team. They've always been good at the offensive side of the ball. I would have to compare him. Hmm. I'm gonna go with unconventional, an unconventional one. When I think of Kirby Smart, huh? I'm gonna say Ed Reed. I'm gonna say Ed
Mm,
Reed.
okay.
I'm gonna say from an offensive side of standpoint of how he likes to be controlled on the offensive side from Georgia. I think that he fits that caliber so well.
It's
I
not
think
just
he
the
does.
offensive side he's so controlling on, it's also defense.
Yeah. I
Like,
know Georgia strives in both sides, but
mm-hmm.
I feel like when you watch Georgia play, it's something different. I mean, the defense is going to show themselves, but I think he finishes out games strong when it comes to the offensive side. So that's why I'm saying that. Who was the third?
Kurt Signetti. Now, I'm gonna tell you guys this: we're comparing them based on like their coaching styles and how we look at them versus like previous coaches.
Hmm,
Because when I compared Ryan Day, it wasn't just the defensive side; it was also how like
yeah,
Ryan Day and Nick Saban are kind of like opposites. Because Nick Saban is more defense, Ryan Day's offense, but they both coach
yeah,
both sides of the ball if they wanted to.
yeah.
But the way in which Ryan Day hires, the way he coaches, and the way he's adapted and evolved is a lot like Nick Saban in so many senses.
I,
And no matter how much people want to compare like Kirby Smart and the others as I mentioned to Nick Saban, you really have to look at how Nick Saban did things and the moves that he made and the changes that he made and the adaptation that he had. When I look at Ryan Day, he's more closer to Nick Saban than any of the other coaches. For me, I compared Kirby Smart to Bob Stoops for that very reason, actually.
yeah,
For everything you just see it regarding, like, he could be very controlling. Now, I will say this Bob Stoops had a lot of success at
mm,
Oklahoma. Kirby had more success because he actually won an Natty at
yeah. He did.
yeah,
He did.
Georgia, like than Bob Stoops did at Oklahoma. But it's like at the end of the day, I think both of them had success, but both of them were very controlling in a sense.
Yeah.
So, and with Kurt Zanetti, I compared him to Urban because of how he coaches, and it's like I'm like, dude, you coach more angry in a sense of how Urban did.
And you know what? And the reason I picked Nick Saban for for Ryan Day was also because of the intensity.
Yeah.
They shared that intensity. For Cignetti, I'm actually going to go with John Gruden. I think he
Ooh.
has that John Gruden type of S with his intensity, with how he gets on his players, but also like his thinking mindset. Indiana ran some incredibly good plays. Even when Mendoza went out against Ohio State and he went in with the backup quarterback, he still had some elaborate things going that he was able to handle. And I definitely feel like he hits the John Gruden-ish type of player, type of mindset when it comes to coaching.
I can see that honestly, and like I said, I compared him to Urban because of that ferocity that he has, the way he coaches.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he does got that Urban energy to me, and like I see it, it's like it's the same type of way Urban had coached for so many years that eventually burned him out, of course. And that was actually Urban's biggest problem because and it was going to burn him out a lot quickly at Ohio State because at a place like Ohio State, yeah, that intensity could work for a while, but you need to learn how to scale some things back with Kurt Cignetti reminds me of that. Because, like, at Indiana, you ain't got to worry about him burning himself out a lot because it's not really a high stressful situation. It's more of, it's more of like, I can win here for as much as I possibly want, and there's none that will ever change about it. So they don't have to worry about burning him out as much. But I will say he will burn himself out if he overdoes it. I'll say that now. And shout out to my former co-host of the Buckeye Lounge now, member of the Buckeye Zone, Sean Schrock. Good to see you, my brother. At some point, I'm going to have you come on. Sean, answer me this question. Would you love to be a special guest on here with myself and James? Because I know a lot of people would love to see you, me, and him together because we've been talking about it for a while.
I'm down, man. I think Sean has to come on this show. We got to get down to it.
Yes.
It's a lot of love, man. It's all love.
Yep. And guys, you guys can check the Buckeye Zone, which is Sean and Nate and EJ Underwood show. The same quarterback myself and Sean had an interview before. And yeah, Sean goes to say hell yes. He would love that. He's on the show with them, and his show is excellent. You guys want to check it out, subscribe, as well as the Illuminati podcast with my girl Mika from the Buckeye Ladies, of course, if you all remember. I would ask her to come on at some point. And trust me, I know she's been interested in talking to you, James. I know that for a fact. So you guys would love to come on and watch the Spectrum, watch their shows as well, and also understand that all three of these shows are brought to you by the OHL podcast. You guys can always check us out on the Roundtable coming up as it will be soon. Now, I do know the Sunday Roundtable will be up after this show is done, at least at 8 o'clock in Ohio time, 7 o'clock in Chicago time. So make sure you guys check it out. You guys are not going to want to miss it. But back to your point, the coach that Cignetti, like you said, John Gruden, I can see that because he does have that John Gruden kind of energy. I can see that. Mm-hmm. But he also has that urban energy too, and it's like, oof, yeah. Like it's easy to see.
I think he's calmer. I think Cignetti's a little bit calmer.
It seems that way. Just by a little. It seems that way.
It's like just by a little pinch.
Yeah, just by a little pinch. But I mean, he's still as crazy as Urban, in my opinion. It's just I think he's more calmer than Urban is a little bit, and that ain't saying much. But also too, when people did start comparing him to Nick Saban, I'm like, guys, I could understand it if he kind of made more moves like a Nick Saban. Because the reality is, too, the other reason why I would compare him and Urban Meyer is, like, Urban was more of a college coach, if you get my understanding. Like, Nick Saban was more of an NFL coach, if anything, and especially during his time in the NFL. And I'm not saying Urban couldn't have been an NFL coach, but, like, Urban seemed more to me like a college coach than an NFL coach. So when I kind of think about Cignetti, this is actually the biggest reason as to why I would pick, say, Urban. And I mean, John Gruden was a great NFL coach as well as he was a college coach, even with his energy. Whereas, like, with Urban, it was more college, just college oriented. And that's the thing about Cignetti, because at least with Ryan Day, I look at the NFL moves he's made, and it's like, yeah, that's Nick Saban, and like Nick Saban, he was coaching in the NFL with Chip Kelly. So, like how Nick Saban was doing with Bill Belichick. So, I mean, in all fairness, it's kind of some of the other reasons why I compared the two based on movements as well as like similarities that I see with how they do their hiring with their coaching staff, how they coach on the field, the intensity they bring, all that. Now, the next coach we go to would be Dan Lanning, who I said was more like Pete Carroll because he has more of that like Pete Carroll kind of energy to me. Because if you go back and watch the Seattle Seahawks, and Sean, we'll get to that in a minute about your Cavs, we will get to that. But with Dan Lanning, um, if you watch the America's Games documentary about the 2013 Seattle Seahawks, and you get to see what Pete Carroll's whole energy was like, that's what Dan Lanning reminds me of. He has a lot more of that Pete Carroll. I'm a coach at heart, but I'm also that fun-loving guy in the back kind of mindset as well. Like he's a player's coach kind of mindset. So
Mm.
that's why I would compare him to Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll was like that at USC too, funny enough. So
And you know it was so, and that's what I was about to bring up. His time at USC was so interesting because he was always the jokester with everybody.
yeah.
Because I remember when he first came in, he was like, we're gonna tear everything down and we're gonna do everything different." And then he was like, and he was following like a lot of his coaches around to see what they were doing from recruiting standpoint. And he was like, "Nah, Ed, you're good, Ed. Everybody else, you guys, Ed, you're fine. Let's lock in. I have some
Hmm.
ideas." Even when he got to Las Vegas, I know it was a short period of time, and we didn't really get to see Pete Carroll get into like his bag of what he usually does, and he was put in a bad situation. I want to first say that he was thrown into a terrible situation compared to
Hmm.
when he was in Seattle, kind of working with Russell. But you saw where he adapted. I think he became more so of not a running coach, but like the play action coach
Yeah.
that can also involve Russell in the scramble. Knows Marshawn can give me 10, 15 yards if I need him. But taking advantage of those things. But then you add the Legion of Boom, that standard of high defensive standard. And he made that happen. And I think Dan Lanning did the same. If you look at Oregon, Dante Moore, great at the play action, great at the scrambling, getting out the pocket. His decision making is going to improve this season. I believe that
Yeah.
so. But Oregon strived defense, getting those big moves going.
He also did mention this too. Like, Pete did have a great front office in Seattle, and he did for a
He
while.
did.
Actually, he
He
really
had
did.
it.
It was
Great off.
great at Seattle. He had a great front
He
office, and
he
that's one of the
had
great. That's one of the great things about if you're an NFL coach and you find yourself with a great front office, you will have good success if you're a smart coach.
he had that Bob Morris front office.
Yeah.
He had that Golden State front office where they made all those moves, man. So
Yeah.
Seattle, and they did it off the draft, but they also did it in free agency. And I think a bunch
Hmm.
of, as we see like with coaches now, they're trying to find the balance between both.
Yes.
I think we're starting to lose the insight that picks matter. Picks matter.
Picks do
I
matter.
Picks matter. Like I know people see the Rams and they won a Super Bowl with no picks, but picks
Yeah.
matter.
No, no, that's a rarity, dude. Rare do you see
Yeah,
teams not winning like with no picks. Like that's rare. But also, again, too, when we talk about it with Pete Carroll, like again with Dan Lanning, I do think he's raising a standard at Oregon. Now I'm not gonna lie,
yeah.
I don't think he's as good of a coach as Pete Carroll is, because Pete Carroll is just a
Oh,
different level of a good coach. But he is trying to raise that standard at Oregon. He is trying to. And let's be real, he's doing a good enough job with his hirings to a point where he's getting his coaches poached. So,
yeah,
like like I said, Ohio State dealt with that all the time. So you're doing a good job as a coach if your coaches are getting poached,
yeah.
obviously. So you're doing a good job. So I would say with Dan Lanning, I do think the one thing you got to see with Dan Lanning is just for him to finally break through, so people can stop making fun of Oregon for not having no natties. Because like, let's be real, their fan base keeps talking, and it's like, guys, until you win a natty, shut up. Like, just shut up, dude. Because, like, Indiana won a natty before y'all. Indiana, the losingest program in the history of the sport, won a natty
And
before Oregon. Like,
and
just shut your
that's
mouth.
and that's and that's another reason why I give him like the John Gruden kind of call. It's because he took a program where nobody really saw that program developing, and he
Yeah.
took his time and he said, "Okay, I understand what the standard is for us, like what we see ourselves to be. So now we got to prove that against other teams
Yes.
and proving that in this conference." And that's why I give him the credit for the first national championship run he had this year, but just his undeniable like wanting to win and wanting
Yeah.
to be the best team that he can be.
Yeah, I will say that about Signetti, and I do think all the coaches on this list have that same mindset. Now, the pro.
Hmm.
Now, I will say this: how you do it is up to you. Now, one of these coaches we
Yeah.
could talk about for ages who can't adapt for to save his life, but and we're gonna get to him soon. But I will say this about Dan Lanning: I think he can do it. It's just a matter of when, right? And again, I think Indiana winning the national title kind of put a bit of a pressure on Oregon because it's like I said, if Indiana wins a title before you did,
Yeah.
now the pressure's kind of on your program now at this point because it's like y'all been having better players, better coaches, better everything than Indiana for the longest time, and now Indiana just went out and won the Natty. Now it's your turn to show it. And I will say this too about all the coaches that we talked about with Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, and even Kirk Cignetti is now Kirk Cignetti is still using transporter. Like it's going to be a while before he can start recruiting better, and I think he will. But you are seeing that with Ryan Day, he's
Hmm.
utilizing the transfer portal and the recruiting as well. Same with
Yeah.
Kirby Smart, even though again I think Ryan Day's doing better than most of these coaches because he actually has a culture that's put in place. Where some of these other schools, and I'm gonna get to it with one in particular in a minute, but some of these other schools like Indiana, like Georgia, like Oregon, especially with Oregon, you're just kind of paying players and
Yeah.
you're not giving them a because here's the reality, if you're paying them too much money they're not gonna have expectations because you're telling them that they're the best option you have. It's kind of like look at Michigan with Bryce Underwood. Do I think
Yeah.
Michigan will get do I really believe Bryce Underwood would be better? No. Why do I not believe that? Because Bryce Underwood has nothing to prove. Let's be realistic about this one thing. You're paying the man $12 million and you ain't got a better option on your bench at quarterback than him right now. You paid that man to stay away from LSU. So like,
And the crazy man, and the crazy thing is, he'd be so better off right now.
yeah, and
Um.
that's what's crazy because that's what I'm telling you. If you pay like for Michigan, if you paying guys that kind of money and you ain't got no backups, like at least for Ohio State, their whole thing is listen here, we have investors like people who you want to get paid this money, you better put it on that football field. And not only that, but you're
Yeah.
coming into a program where the players are just as good as you. And when I look
Yeah.
at Indiana, they got some work to do, but I think Kirk Cinetti is going to do everything he can to establish that culture. And I'm not going to lie, the man is 63 going on 64, and I want to see how long he continue his upward trend of coaching because the trend is once you hit 65, you have like one good winning season, and then the rest of the time you're going downhill from there. Because there's only one coach who managed to beat that, and that was Nick Saban, and no other coach has been able to do that. I'm going to see if Cignetti can do that for however long he's going to be there. But when it comes down to it, a guy like Ryan Day, a guy like even Kirby Smart, despite the fact that him and Georgia haven't won a playoff game since 2022,
Hmm.
they've done a great job as far as implementing the transfer portal. Mainly, again, Ryan Day's done it better than all of them because he has players that fit his culture. Players that fit your culture will do wonders for your program at the end of the day. And that is also the thing with when I'm looking at all these other coaches, why I would compare Ryan Day to Nick Saban is because of that very thing. I think Nick Saban in his younger years, because he retired from this when he got older because he didn't want to deal with it no more. But I would say in Nick Saban, if he was in his younger years, the prime of his years, and the NIL era was a thing at that point, I
Huh.
think Nick, as well as the transfer portal, I think Nick Saban would have adapted quickly to everything. Like I think he would have found a way to combine both the transfer portal and the recruiting into one, and would have been able to try to find a way to kind of maneuver around that little transparency. Why? Because you have players that just want money, and then you have players that fit your culture. And then you got some of these players that are kind of in between, where they do want the money, but they also want to be able to be a part of somewhere they can get developed. So when I look at Ryan Day and how he done it, I'm like, if Nick Saban was in his younger years, it's something he would do. Urban, I'm not confident he would adapt very well. I think he probably would go into the transfer portal, kind of like what Kirk Cignetti's doing. I would say that now. I think he kind of would do what Kirk is doing. And for Dan Lanning, if Pete Carroll was in this era, I think Pete Carroll would do a good job too with USC. Because USC is a big brand, despite the fact they ain't done anything
Yeah.
in years. Like Oregon, USC is a national brand. Obviously, a bigger brand than Oregon,
Yeah.
when they're good, really. but they are a bigger brand. So I can pretty much see both sides of the spectrum playing out in that regard, only because of that right then and there. Because it's like these coaches are in pretty similar situations where if you saw the coaches before them in these situations when they were younger, they would have adapted, and it pretty much would be similar to what you're seeing some of these coaches do now. I would even see Bob Stoops kind of doing what Kirby Smart's doing now. So, you know.
Yeah, from a standpoint of schools and programs, USC has always shown themselves as a good program, especially joining the Big Ten Conference with them and UCLA.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, well, they kind of started off rocky because they were a bottom five team from the start. Then they moved up into like a mid tier team. And now this year is the year we're
yeah,
going to see, can they make the playoffs, or is Lincoln Riley going to disappoint again as a head coach? Because like I said, I like Lincoln Riley as an offensive coordinator. As a head coach, I'm not confident in that man at all.
yeah, I think USC needs to work. I think both LA teams need some work from both sides. Both need some work.
Yeah.
UCLA, for sure, with the coaching changes and the firings, they definitely need to figure out what next for their program.
No, what they need to do is just make better hires. Like, you did have a good hire
Yeah.
with Chip Kelly. It's just that the NIL stuff kind of just drove him out after a while. So it's like,
hmm
now, I do think the coach they did hire is a good hire because he did some good stuff at the other program he was at. So I'm like, this could be a good hire for UCLA. Um, Now, the last coach we're going to get into, because we talked about him, is Dabo Swinney. Because, like I said, we talked about how Oregon is a little bit too much into spending money on players. Well, this one is not interested in that at all. Like, well, Clemson will spend money, but he's not going to adapt and just go into the portal like others. Like, he's just stuck in his ways. So, and this is actually why I compared him to one of those older coaches back in the day, which I believe his name was like Bobby Bowen. I gotta go back and look, but
Oh,
but
yeah.
it was like one of them old school kind of coaches where I'm like, yeah, this kind of makes a lot of sense because this is the same coach who's stuck in his ways too. So it's like, so that would make a lot of sense. Who would you compare Dabo Swinney to?
The Sweeney. And the thing is, I love Clemson's program
Hmm.
for what the name stands for what Dabo has done in the past, of
Yeah.
what Clemson has stood for. Oh man, I have to probably agree with you. An older coach that kind of just sticks to the same type of format because Dabo really doesn't adapt. I mean, you kind of see we haven't seen the past couple of years. I think the last really good year he had was Trevor Lawrence, and
Yeah.
and that kind of felt the same even after he left. I think he really hasn't adapted to the new style that he's tried to stay in his own lane and kind of tried to do the same things over and over again, kind of expecting a new result. Hmm. From that standpoint, I would have to go with who's somebody
The
that's
coach that I compared him to
oh
was Bobby Bowden because he for the coach from Florida State from back in the day because he was just
no
like
yeah.
uh he was just like Dabo Swinney, where this man would just do stuff his way and would not do anything adapting at all.
I'm gonna say Rex Ryan.
Ooh, that's enough.
'Cause-
That's a good one.
right, because I'm thinking about how he was in New York, where he kind of just and Buffalo, how he just kind of stayed in that same concept of formation, same concept of defenses, expecting making little tweaks and changes, but really just staying with like what his
Hmm.
foundation was, his fundamentals. That's how I see him. Because Clemson is an incredible program, but he builds off the defensive side, and from the offensive standpoint, he kind of just lets them run kind of basic formations where it's kind of like, all right, let's get 5 yards here, 10 yards here. It's not really, the deep ball can be there, but
How
you know,
about Lou Holtz? I mean, I would say Lou Holtz is more of an all-time great coach, more so than Dabo, and he did change as time went on. Now, I will say this: is he stuck in his ways regarding how he thinks about Notre Dame? Yeah, in that line of work, yeah, you could compare him. But like,
mm,
I would say Lou is a better coach and more adaptive than Dabo. Oh, another coach you could compare him to is John Calipari because of
mm.
program trajectory, where both of these guys had incredible runs, but their programs plateaued because they refused to adapt as well. So, like, that's another coach you could you could compare it to because of that.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I saw Bobby Bowden and I said, yeah, that would be the first one. And then when I saw John Calipari, because I forgot to mention him last time. Clemson was a good program, which Dabo made great for a short period. They are back to good again. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, are they good? Like, no, like they're kind of right back to where they were before him in a sense, where it's like, dude, and look, I really do like Dabo's mentality of trying to build it through the high school ranks, but you also
Yeah.
have to realize that you're gonna have players leave a lot, so you're gonna have to adapt at some point, and that's where I would say
Yeah.
with the John Calipari and Bobby Bowden, it's like that's those are the two best coaches because like those coaches, you had a great run, you keep longevity and culture, which is great, but you don't adapt, and then your programs plateau because of that. And again, Troy, thanks
I,
for the comment on this one.
yeah, I agree. I agree from the standpoint of first, yes, Clemson is a better team now than what we've seen for the past couple of
Yeah,
seasons from a program standpoint. But I also did that's because he also adapted a little and tried to
a
say, okay,
little.
maybe we can try to add a little bit more of some different things. I do like from a high school standpoint, but like you're taking a risk. I think anytime you're dealing with high school guys coming into the college level, you're always taking a risk. Um, but I think he can build on that with definitely putting in more of a round team where it's not just like a bunch of freshmen trying to get the shine. Like you got to
Yeah,
use everybody.
yeah, and if you also ask me too, I mean, you would say his quirkiness is like PJ Fleck, works for a short while, then got cheesy after a few years. I mean, yeah, I mean, even though I will say
Yeah,
this, unlike Dabo Sweeney, PJ Fleck has actually adapted to college football, and Minnesota is still one of the mid-tier programs in the Big Ten. Like they haven't fallen off, like they're where they are still, which is a mid-tier
yeah,
program. Like they still are a mid-tier program in the Big Ten. The issues with
yeah,
Minnesota had always been plagued of injuries and not great quarterback play. Because they got a good offensive line, they have great running backs, they have good receivers, they have good tight ends, they have good defense, or great defense really. They just don't have great quarterback play, and even when they do have those good to great players on those other positions, they tend to get injured. So that's the only problem with Minnesota. They still win. They still win at least around what 8-4, 9-3, 10-2. They're still around that more times than not. So
yeah,
that'd be the biggest thing you can say about Minnesota is like they're still where they've been for the past set of years. Whereas like Dabo took them to another level and then just plateaued because he refused to adapt, and now he's trying to adapt at least a little bit. But
yeah.
yeah, now let's get on to the NBA since we could talk about all that. But you can want to, if you want to, you can give me your final thoughts on the coaches and how you compare them at least.
I can. So I think what from both of our lists has definitely been a comparison of just coaches that some we can see at an NFL level aspect, and some that we know are more just the college ready coaches.
Mm-hmm.
But also how they get their players ready from an intensity standpoint, from a cool collective standpoint, from the ones that kind of have the blueprint and kind of keep it, from the ones that like to change it up and see what can be changed and what can be different. I
Yeah.
think when we from an NFL example, when you watch guys like Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur, they're different
Mm-hmm.
because they like to be creative, and that
Yes.
creativity we see on a game to game basis. So from the top coaches standpoint, from who we see right now, and I don't believe that this list will change most likely next season when we're talking about another run back season in different teams. Um, but yeah, from where we stand, I think that those are that's what I see them as and their programs as.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I see it as well. And like I see it, people like we're comparing them based on cultures, the way their
Yeah,
programs have done compared to the coaches of the past, because we've seen this multiple times before. Where and my dog is out here going crazy, stupid.
your dog want to get in it. He says, I have a take two.
Yeah, she does. She does. She really does. The reality is though, like when I look at, and the reason this conversation that got brought up is like I said on the previous video. Again, you guys go back and check it right here in the Spectrum podcast, which is it's about what people have said about coaches. Like how many coaches I've seen getting compared to Nick Saban or Urban and all these
Yeah.
other great coaches, and it's like, okay, how about we break down exactly what these coaches, like who to compare these coaches to and how we can compare them. Like I said, I could compare. I'm not saying Ryan Day is going to be the next Nick Saban in college football, but I can see similarities, and I can compare him to Nick Saban because of the intensity in which he coaches, the moves in which he makes, and how his program feels. His program is more NFL. That was Nick Saban's program at Alabama.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm not saying as if at Ohio State, because I'm not gonna lie, Urban still managed to make it an NFL program where we were taking players to the NFL at another level. Like I'm not saying as if Urban couldn't do that. I'm not saying as if Kirk Signetti couldn't do that, but they were more college oriented than your typical NFL coach. But that's just the reality. Is these coaches we compare them. How about we compare them based on culture? Compare them based on coaching. Hey girl, and compare them based on other aspects as well, not just that. So now we can get to the NFL, where obviously Sean's first question, and honestly, you can answer this. Do you feel like they can make a playoff run, a deep playoff run?
Ah. Hmm. Okay, let's back this up. I love Sean's question. Let's back this up. I want to take this back to when Donovan first got there. Donovan Mitchell got there during the time period where Darius Garland was starting to show himself. Jared Allen was, a type S center from the standpoint of tall, big, like athletic. Evan Mobley, great.
Yeah.
And that team was beating everyone during the regular season. And
Yep.
they looked like a deep finals team. But again, that team didn't make it this far. Then the next season, we saw the same things. This past season, they make it out of the first round, losing the second to a team that they really should have beat. Now, I respect them. They made an incredible playoff run last year, as we all know. You add James Harden into the mix now. The shooting has gotten better. The
Yes.
spacing of the floor has gotten better. Cleveland is a great team, even though I know Harden is dealing with a wrist injury right now that we knew he was going to be coming into the playoffs. Usually, James always has an injury coming
Yes.
into the playoffs.
Yep.
Can they be a deep playoff team? Yes. Will they be a deep playoff team? I don't know.
And the Cavs are playing right now as well. They're up as they should be against this team, 43-21 against the Wizards, as they
I
should.
mean, I wouldn't even play any starters right now. This is the last game of the season. I wouldn't play any starters. I wouldn't even play anybody. I would.
And when you're
just
pretty
start.
much looking at the overall part of the season, they've let me go back to the standings here. They have been pretty good majority of the season. I mean, their record overall is 51-30, which is fourth in the in the Eastern Conference, which is really good. Again, I'm still surprised how good the Detroit Pistons got. Like all of a sudden you went from being like this is Indiana 2.0 all of a sudden, like all of a sudden you got the worst basketball team, and then all of a sudden they just shot away all the way up to the number one ranking, and now they're like, what?
I want to even give shout out to Atlanta. That was a team that was at least the top 10, and it is now fifth. So I want to give a lot of them praise. And yeah, Cavs aren't playing any starters. I wouldn't either. I wouldn't play anybody.
Yeah, they
of
should.
importance. Now, here's the better question I have about Cleveland. I'm not going to even say can he make a deep player run. Can James Harden finally answer the questions that's been eluding him his entire career? Can he win on a team that is not about him? This is not his team. This is Donovan Mitchell's
I'm not
team.
gonna lie. I think he could have done it with the Brooklyn Nets had it not been for injuries. That is the
Injury
one.
stopped the Brooklyn. Yes, injury stopped the
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
that is the
Nets.
one team.
I
So
don't
if I had to be honest, that is the. I think he could have with that team, but like because of injuries,
Detroit doesn't have any. I agree. Detroit really doesn't have any shooters. I've always liked Duncan Robinson, but he's not as efficient as he should be. Like when he was in Miami. The same with Gabe Vincent. The only thing in another team, Houston is not going to make a deep playoff run, and I have said that numerous times. this season that they needed to address the point guard situation, and they haven't, and that's going to hurt them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that could hurt them. Now, I have seen this though, and I have been watching their games where it seems like they've been trying to figure out who's been in that point guard situation. And from what I understand, it could be Reed Shepard, who, when he's on the floor, the offense and the defense actually tends to do well. When he's not, it's kind of like, yeah, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I like Amin Thompson a lot, but he's
I think
not.
he's more of a shooting guard.
He is, and he really is not. He's more of an Andre Roberson because he's not really like a shooter, but he can get to the basket, defense. Like he plays that really well. That's why I said the only thing I don't like about Houston. Well, and I know it's not on purpose. Flair Van Fleet got hurt before the season even started, so they
Yeah.
were putting a situation where they didn't have a point guard.
And I think
But
that's one of the things. I think if Fran Vlad Vliet was healthy, I think their point guard situation would have been better. And I think Reed
yeah,
Shepard would have been the backup point guard. But because
mm,
of the injury to Fran Van Vliet, it actually just put them in a whole different situation. So they're like,
yeah,
okay, we got to figure out who the starting point guard going to be now.
it put them in a bad batch, and I would have definitely loved to see them grab somebody like Harden. I mean, not Harden, but Lonzo. Lonzo doing great for that team, just from a just playmaking standpoint, not from a shooting standpoint. You don't need to do every that. You still got shooters. You still got guys for that. But I like him to fill that role since Lemon Feet is out. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I mean, I think for the Bulls this season, it was a lot of what if questions, but a lot of things got answered.
Yeah.
I think we made moves really, really late in the year that we should have made years ago. To now want to kind of clean house was a late thing for us to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any if or ands or buts about the Chicago Bulls because I've never had faith in that team. I'm not gonna lie. Like ever since Derrick Rose, man, they have not been the same. They have not been good since. Oh, I'm like, oh, dude.
Yeah, I think that team with Demar and Lonzo and Zach Levine had potential because they were
Yeah,
number one going into I think the All Star break, but we kept a lot of those guys for way too long. And if we were going to clean
yeah,
house, I wish we could have did that a couple more years ago, where a lot of those guys were worth better picks. I agree. But here's what I think. I think Harden loves any role that he's in any situation he goes into. Philly, he didn't really love it, but he liked Dan Marley for the time being when he was him, and he enjoyed being there. When he got to LA, I think he loved being in LA. I think he loved the role of what he had in LA with Kawhi and everybody else. Until it started to get a little bit out of hand, and when he was like, "All right, we're not gonna make the playoffs. I can at least get on a playoff winning team." So I think now that he's in Cleveland, I agree. I think Harden has always been good at getting big man involved in the stuff he's doing. He's did that in Houston with Dwight Howard, with Clint Capella. Like I James in the pick and roll is a deadly, deadly game. Him in the isolation, deadly game. And that's why I think the spacing really helps Cleveland. But
oh yeah,
are the bright lights going to become too bright for certain guys on this team? Like that's always been the conversation. Cleveland can be one of those teams, but it's always something that gets in the way. This has been for Harden. This has been for like a thousand different things have happened where Harden can't get over that one hump and get into a really good winning situation. So let's hope it happens this year. Let's hope it happens this year.
yeah.
Uh,
And Sean, you say OKC is probably going to win if they stay healthy. Possibly. I mean, OKC's been a really good basketball team this season. They're number one in the Western
uh,
Conference again. Is it possible? It's possible, but they probably could. But I mean, it's hard to repeat. Let's be honest.
I think San Antonio takes them out.
It's a
I think
chance
it's
San Antonio does,
I
and I'm
think
not gonna lie.
San,
I love Victor. I love Victor.
I think overall just from the balance. Because
Yeah, true.
Victor is that offense, but Victor is also the defensive side of the ball. He blocks 90% of the league. 90% of
Let-
the league he
I mean,
blocks.
Is that surprising given the fact that he's
No,
7'5" with a freaking long wingspan with a Kevin Durant, where the only player he's ever struggled to block happens to be the 7-footer he does his best to model his game after up in Houston. Which is
mm,
kind of funny how Kevin Durant can still just shoot over him like he's nothing,
yeah.
but everybody else in the league has an issue shoot over him, and
And
that's just funny.
and I like OKC, but yeah, they did have a lot of injuries this season that was very, very concerning.
And
But
it
I
still
also
is, and
think,
the fact that they still managed to keep number one
yeah,
is impressive. But I'm like, I could see a point where San Antonio takes them out.
yeah, I can see a point with San Antonio come out, especially and,
Yeah.
and we were talking about this, and they say, well, they're too young, and they like this and that. Victor's been waiting for this moment since he was a kid. Like
Mm-hmm.
Victor came from a French international league where it didn't matter how young you were, how old you were. Victor was the guy you want to have on your team because you had a chance to win.
Oh yeah.
I think it's the same with the NBA. He is the guy you want to have and have the chance to win. I don't know where. And if you saw the season, they struggled on Christmas. They struggled
Yeah.
on the game after. They struggled. Like Chet has not been able to stop Victor in the moments it matters, and I hope that he can when the playoffs start. But I don't have. I can say when they play each other, you're gonna see holes from both sides. You're gonna see holes.
Oh yeah. There's holes for everybody in the league. There's holes for
Yeah.
everybody. So it's gonna be like
Uh.
who has the least amount of holes that's gonna end up winning. I would say in the NBA. So like with the NBA, at least I could say like there's no definitive answer as
mm,
to who could win the
Yeah.
NBA trophy because like we don't because all teams have some set of holes. We just it's just gonna come down to who has the
I mean,
least and who can
yeah.
who can pretty
Boston.
much make the
Boston
shots when it
looks.
matters.
Yeah. Boston looks really good. Jason has kind of gotten back into his groove,
Yeah.
but he's not Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum yet. It's still some things that we got to see.
And
But
you got to give
out
it
of
to
that,
Boston too. You got to give it to them for also being able to still
yeah.
be a good team, being number two overall in the Eastern Conference, and that's really
And,
good on their
and
part.
you
But
know what the
they have holes too
crazy,
still.
you know what the crazy thing is? These guys were like 11th at
Yeah.
at the start of the season, and Jalen Brown told all the naysayers, all the doubters. He said, "You guys wonder why I won Finals VP. You guys wonder why I was the best player in the finals. Well, now you're gonna see me lead this team until JT comes back, and you're gonna see why I am who I am."
Yeah.
I think I think Cade has all the potential. I think this Detroit team has all the potential in the world. I think they do struggle with the outside shooting as something uh, that might kick them, but it depends on the team that takes advantage of it. It also depends on the team that's taking advantage of it.
Oh
I think
yeah.
Boston has a lot of ignition, but it takes that one team to take the fire out. I
Oh
think
yeah.
New York. I think New York has not shown me that they can be the finals team that we saw last year.
Yeah.
They've lost some really crucial games, and I enjoy the lineup, but it's not continuous, and it doesn't always work. I thought when they got more shooting in that was going to help, and it does to an extent, but New York isn't. It's a half and half ride with them, so you
Yeah.
never know what
It
you're
is.
gonna know.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie. I really do think the NBA has been more fun because we're starting to see rivalries come back to
Yeah,
being something that means something for once for the first time in a while. Because, like, let's be real, 2020 is where things started to fall off, and then it's like now we're starting to see them take rivalries back seriously again, and I love it, especially with the younger generation because they love having rivalries. They love proving something. So I'm loving this that we're having rivalries come back. And the other thing is too is like I see it. The NBA is such parity to a point where you don't even know who is
yeah,
going to be who's the best team anymore. Like now, every team has holes, and even though you might be the best team in the regular season, we got to see how you pull off in the playoffs now. So I'm
yeah.
excited to see how this whole season how this season unfolds going into the playoffs. I'm excited to see how the playoffs go. Why did you think Mike Brown, New York hired Mike Brown as coach? He's terrible. LOL. Who knows? It's probably, well, actually,
Okay.
if I have to think about it, if I have to think about it, I think it would be what he did with the Sacramento Kings, if I had to think about it. Because he did get them to be a playoff team and a very
Hmm.
good team, but then they fell off after a while.
Even when you think about that year that they went to the playoffs, and then the next year they were in the play-in. But even think about the years before that, he was an assistant coach in Golden State, where he won a championship with Golden State, and then got the head coaching job at
Yeah, I think that
Sacramento.
would be the other thing. Is I think it's more of like what you see with teams who like what we see in college football and even in the NFL, where teams hire coaches of the previous staff, such as how we seen
Yeah,
teams hire Nick Saban's coaches, or how teams are doing like Urban and/or Ryan Day's coaching staff now, and how we see NFL teams do with, like, for instance, Andy Reid's coaching staff, Bill
yeah,
Belichick's
yeah.
coaching staff. Like, we're starting to see, like, I think the reason they hired him is to try to get some of that Golden State, boom, out of it, which is what we see from every coach trying to do that.
I
It would
I think
every
I think
franchise tries that.
I think Mike Brown fit the culture of New York. Because
True, that's the other thing.
if you look at that Sacramento team, it looks like how the New York team looks now. You have a guard in De'Aaron Fox, which his thing was speed. More of Jalen's is post shooting ability, getting finding the shot.
Hmm.
Uh, you got a six man that was Malik Monk, and I think their six man is kind of, I believe it's Jordan Clarkson or it's really Mitchell Robinson, if you want to think about it. I think he fits. Now, here's where I think Mike Brown is not the best hiring coach. Because when you leave a coach like Tom Thibodeau and you go from Mike Brown to Tom Thibodeau, it's a difference of power and
Yeah,
restraint.
yeah,
Um, because Tom Thibodeau is that yell, get in your face, hey, let's do this, do that, do this. And Mike is more of this kind of calm culture. Hey, let's wrap it up. Let's get the energy hot. I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he was the best coach out of the pool. But I think with Mike Brown, they were expecting him to kind of do what he did in Sacramento, of bringing kind of this group that was kind of finding themselves and putting them together. But in this case, these are the Villanova boys. Half of these guys played with each other already. And in college, they
yeah.
know each other. They know the story. I mean, I didn't like because DiVincenzo would have been great for them right now because they needed that spark off the bench. But he's in Minnesota, and if you look at Minnesota, they are looking to make a really good playoff run this year. Let's see what happens. You can't ever count on Anthony Edwards. I don't ever want to count him anymore because you don't know what he's gonna do
You
when the
don't.
playoffs start when it's time to go. So I think Mike I think Mike fixed something for them. I want to see what he does to finish out the year. I want to
Hmm.
see how they go into the playoffs and how that first round looks for them. But it could be something. I just
It
got
could.
to see. I got to see Mike turn on a
And again,
dime for them.
when you kind of say he's a terrible coach, but then it's like the New York Knicks are like 53-28, and they're third in the Eastern Conference. It's kind of like to them. I
I
mean,
I think I think bad coaching doesn't dictate the team. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be transparent. Doc
I'm not
Rivers
gonna
is a
lie, I don't
horrible
think so.
coach. Doc Rivers is a horrible coach.
Oh, he is a horrible coach.
He's a horrible coach. But with that first year when he got to Milwaukee, they were a good team, and it just overlapped his coaching. But you've seen
Hmm.
it in the playoffs.
Oh,
When the
absolutely.
playoffs started,
Honestly, that's been the story of Doc Rivers' career his entire time. Like the only time he won a NBA title was with the Boston Celtics back when you had Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett, and that is actually the biggest reason as to why he won
but
because of
but
those
look at but
guys.
look at that. But look at that. They played the Lakers twice. They lost to
Yeah,
the Lakers the first time, and then they beat
and
the
beat
Lakers the
them the
second time.
second time.
So it's
And like I said, he tends to get exposed because he gets outcoached a lot. That's been the theme of his career his entire time.
and
And to be quite honest, I do think coaching in the NBA does matter. I mean, it might not matter as much as football, but it does matter to an extent of like development, setting a culture, uh, getting your players ready to get on that court. Because, like, I mean, I don't understand the nuances of how the coaches in the NBA. Well, actually, I kind of understand it, but it's still kind of confusing to an extent regarding like how coaches in the NBA call plays on the court with offense and defense, how they move from zone and how they move the ball
yeah,
around and everything. I think there are nuances to it. It's not as straightforward as college football, obviously, but I mean, or
yeah,
football in general, really. But there is a contingency regarding how they do it.
yeah.
With Doc Rivers, I'm kind of interested in seeing how he does it. Like, how did he? Because obviously in basketball, you don't have like a straight up offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Even though I think it should, in a sense, because you need to have your defensive offense set in a sense. Um, But like when I look at Doc Rivers and how he's coached in the playoffs and how easily he gets exposed, and I'm looking at it like, dude, I don't care what you did with the Boston Celtics. I don't care like how good of a coach you are in the regular season. It's like when it matters the most, you choke when it matters, and it's like
Yeah.
that's the point that you're getting hired for. It's not just the fact you're a good regular season coach. It's the fact that you can win the big games when it matters. And guess what?
And
Even
I
here in
think,
the regular season now with the Milwaukee Bucks, you suck.
yeah, no, they had the worst. They had the worst together.
Like you think
And
Mike Brown was a terrible hire? Like at least the Knicks are
I didn't.
53 and or 3, but they ain't as bad as the Bucks. Like god dang.
I didn't like Doc from when the hiring came because if we look at that before he got there, he was in Philly, and Philly had a lot of question marks
A lot of
on
bad.
that team, a lot of question marks. So and he was fired to hire Nick Nurse. So
Yeah.
from that standpoint, I get what you're saying. Like you have a coaching staff, and a lot of it is you guys work together when it comes to certain plays and standpoints like that. But as a coach, you kind of come in with your own set stuff when it comes to certain zones and defenses and out of bounds stuff. You kind of know what you're going to run. If we look at Doc's track record, I agree with you. I mean, and he looks at L.A. when he was on the Clippers. He said, "Well, we dealt with injuries. Well, Chris Paul was hurt. Well, Blake had a back injury. Well, this and
I'm
that."
not gonna
And it's
lie, the Clippers did have those problems, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that when they were healthy, you couldn't win when it mattered.
yeah, I mean, Chris has injuries.
Especially with the slam dunk brothers, bro. What
Yeah,
you had with Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, and Chris Paul, Slam Dunk City, man, that was
it
the
was-
peak of the Clippers right there. You should have won an NBA title with that.
and I think they lost to the year I started watching during I think 2015, and the year that they lost was against Houston, and they should have beat that Houston team. They were up
Mm-hmm.
against that Houston team, and they lost to that Houston. So LA had a problem. They still have it now, even when they put that Paul George and Kawhi team together, and they put Patrick Beverly on there, and they had a really good team going into the playoffs. And I know COVID hit and stuff went awry, and stuff went crazy.
Yeah.
But you still saw the problems. It's like Doc is an incredible coach when he wants to be a coach. When he wants
Yeah.
to lead the offense and do all this, he can be great. But then Doc struggles. Doc struggles. And a lot of these coaches struggle. A lot of these coaches struggle.
Yeah. It's true.
So I think when you look at Cleveland, when they got rid of Bickerstaff and they brought in Kenny Akins, and I was like, well, this is the same Kenny Akins that was coaching in Brooklyn. What are we gonna get? And he showed me what we were gonna get, and I was like, okay, cool. He came with a different dynamic, and they trusted him,
Yeah.
and he used it to his ability. You got a lot of coaches that do that, and some coaches that don't. This playoff season is going to be very interesting because we're going to see what teams have been saving stuff, who hasn't been, who's going to keep doing this, who's going to be riding their fire, who's going to be riding their winning streaks or hot streaks, and who's going to keep going. Detroit is one of those teams that can do it, but then they can also lose it just like that, of a snap of a finger.
Mm-hmm.
OKC is the team to beat. They're the defending champs. So everybody's going to be putting a lens on OKC.
Oh
The
yeah.
Lakers had a good chance of being a very good playoff team this year, but of course, as every year, injuries affect this team. You
Mm-hmm.
lose Luka, you lose Austin Reeves before the playoffs even start. Now you
And
got
they
LeBron
were
going in there,
really good. 52
yeah.
29. Come on, man.
And Luka just dropped 60 not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Austin was up at 30. And when they both were out, Austin was keeping that team alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it all means something. So what are we gonna get this season? I don't know. I don't know what this playoffs are gonna bring, but it's gonna be cinema. It's gonna be good to watch. It's gonna be fun to watch. It's gonna be
Oh
fun.
yeah.
It's been an interesting season. We weren't expecting Bam to drop 83 points on a random Wednesday night
That
that
is so.
nobody.
I'm like this NBA year, like bro. Legends back in the day could drop like 50 in today's day and age. If you somebody Bam Adebayo can get 83, we got a problem
Just
today.
random. Nope,
Just
it wasn't
random.
even televised. This was a random on NBA League Pass. Like
Just
this is
random. And it's like, this is not a
random.
guy you would expect to get 83. And it's like, he gets
Yeah,
83. You're like, what the what?
you
Now,
you
obviously,
woke up.
if you're like me and you can actually access that game for free without having to pay for NBA League Pass, because I didn't,
Mm,
guess what? I got to see it. And I'm like, I was like, okay, Jimmy Butler, I could buy that. Bam
yeah,
Adebayo?
'cause he had like 45 and a half. It was a crazy scene.
It was
Couldn't
ridiculous.
believe it. Couldn't
Like,
believe it.
bro, I could buy freaking Donovan Mitchell doing that. I could buy Jalen Brunson doing that. I could buy freaking Mikal Bridges doing that. Like, I could buy anybody else but Bam Adebayo. So that's just
Mhm.
ridiculous. But guys, we're gonna fam out because my dog is just over here wanting me to take her outside now. So so we're gonna head out. Give me your final
Like
thoughts
I
on the
want
NBA.
some love. I need the love too.
I know that's how she is. Hey, but I will tell you guys this though before we close out, and before you give your final thoughts on the NBA season, is a little bit of Ohio State news where it seems like they have a chance to make history in the NFL draft. Now, obviously, we all know one of the history is them having at least 4 players drafted in the top
Yeah.
10, which would be the first school to ever have that accomplished. But the other one is a potential where they could tie, if I'm not mistaken, Alabama, and there's another school. Let me see if I can find it right here. Alabama and the 2004, so it's 2021 Alabama and 2024 Miami for the most first round picks, being at 6 if somehow they get, because it seems like David Benosa might find himself sneaking back into the first round. Caden McDonald has always been projected to be a first rounder. There ain't no doubt about that. Now late
Mhm.
first round, of course, because there are some teams that need a D lineman, but it might be later. But that's the chance Ohio State does have of breaking the of having to either break the record or to tie it. So if we're being honest, so they do have
Yeah.
a chance to do that. Oh,
And I think
and they also have the chance, obviously, with, let's see here. So it's Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Carnell Tate. You have Cade McDonald, David Benosin, and is there one more player I'm missing here that could be first rounders? I don't think there's anyone else I'm missing but those 6, but there is a chance they could get another one. Who knows? But I just figured I'd break that to you guys. Obviously,
uh
'cause-
and this is gonna be a really and this draft this year it's really gonna be a defensive draft. It's gonna be
Mhm.
definitely a defensive draft. Also, put my Adam Schefter hat on for this. This is also gonna be, I believe, a very big trade draft. I believe a lot of trades are going to be done in this draft where certain teams are going to get different players that fit the mold that they need to kind of bring them over the top. I think you're definitely going to see some moves from. I want to say Jacksonville might be a team to look out for. I
Kansas
definitely
City, I
think,
think, is a team you might want to look out for as well because
yeah,
they got some
Kansas
stuff there.
City, Houston is definitely going to be a team that I think you should look out for when it comes to trade pieces and what they want to use. So I think this is going to be one of those that somebody's going to move up or move down or try to get some time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now, I would
so
say in Kansas City's case, it would be more offensive than defensive,
yeah,
only because of the fact, like, because the places they do need is at wide receiver and offensive line. And
yeah,
one of the things I have heard is obviously they're looking into Carnell Tate as to whether to draft him or offensive lineman. And if I'm them, like, obviously you need an offensive line because your offensive line needs a lot of work. Like, look, Joshua Simmons is the best offensive lineman on your team and is the saving grace at left tackle. Now you need to build up at right tackle, guard, and center. But you could probably do that as a draft. But you also do need receivers. I'm not going to lie. Like, their receiving core is solid, but they don't have a true number one outside of Travis Kelce. Could
yeah,
Carnell Tate change that for them? Most likely. Yes, he's never been a number one at Ohio State. Let's be realistic. Neither was Emeka Egbuka. And let's be real. Both those guys can be capable of being number ones. So, and Emeka showed that too. And during his time with the Bucks, he was a number one when Mike Evans was out and when Chris Godwin was out. And he made the most of it. So that tells you everything you need to know. So I think Carnell could be a number one for them, but we'll see what they do. And like I said, do you have any final thoughts on the show, on the NBA regarding what we just talked about?
I think the NBA this season has first first they brought back a lot of love I had for NBA
Yes.
basketball.
Yes.
It's been a really up and down season, but it's been really fun to watch. I think it's been some really good moments and really interesting ones and incredible stuff. It's really been dynamic, and I was expecting at the beginning of the season when certain guys went to certain teams and how everything was transpired. I think the Charlotte Hornets have been prime time Lake Show TV,
Yeah.
and I'm happy for them because I'm happy that LaMelo gets to show his talent.
Mhm.
Um, I think we've seen a lot of things. I think Giannis has a lot of question marks going into the summer. I think John Morant also has the same thing.
Yes.
Um, I want to see where certain teams go from here. I think Golden State answers some questions, but I want to see them at fully healthy. I want to see how that team looks. I've enjoyed this season. I think it's been incredible. I think now that we're getting into playoffs, now we get to really see who deserves to be a champion or not. And this is
Mhm.
always that time of year where teams get to put up or shut up. So I'm excited.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't wait.
Yeah, and I can't wait either. And I'm excited for how the NBA moves forward. And I am interested. And obviously, we could check in on the NBA free agency to see where some of these players go and everything else regarding that news once free agency hits
Oh
for them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
once,
Free agent when free agency opens up, man, we need to have like a special time show just
yeah,
to
like we need to be able to
get
watch
that.
like all the news. And
Yeah,
I gotta like now you got to tell me where to like go to pull up the news for immediate alerts because I'm gonna want to
yeah,
be able to do that. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
Um,
No
Obviously,
problem.
I can also try pulling stuff up on YouTube, but I don't want to get copyrighted.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, no. If you ask me, yeah, I can't wait to see how this NBA season unfold. And again, guys, thank you for tuning in to the Spectrum Podcast. Everybody, like, share, subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode, and leave a comment in the comment section to help get our algorithm out there. And if you're available for the live show, come into the chat and try to talk it up with us, ask us some questions, have a good chat about all the stuff we have, and we're gonna be able to enjoy having a fun time with all of you. So I'm gonna catch you guys later. Peace out.
Peace.
All right.